Hello everyone. As we begin Module 2, I wanted to talk a few minutes about the selection of a topic. Over the years, I've had students come up to me and say, Dr. Marion, what do you think about this topic? What do you think about that topic? My typical response is, I really can't say anything about this topic because speaking about a topic in isolation doesn't really mean much when it comes to selecting a topic for a research project or research effort when you're conducting research. The topic I see is like the tip of a giant iceberg, much of which lies below the waterline. Well, what is below the waterline in a research effort? Well, consider that what is the purpose of research and to start with? Research advances a body of knowledge, and a body of knowledge is usually associated with advancing theories, developing or advancing one or more theories. So for example, let's say you wanted to study motivation in the workplace. Chances are that theory upon which it's based would be something like Maslow's hierarchy or maybe Hertzberg's two-factor theory, or it could be situational leadership. I mean, there are many possible theories upon which a study such as that might be based. But I can't say anything about the topic unless you tell me something about the body of knowledge, the literature, the underlying theory, what gaps might be existing in that existing literature. So, for example, if you're going to do research on something and it's already been done, there's really no point. So you have to start out, as I mentioned in one of the discussion forums, thinking that you're going to be standing upon the shoulders of giants. You're going to be taking what others have done and advancing it further. So step one, I can't say anything about the topic until I understand the underlying theoretical underpinnings of your research and something about the literature that you have been studying, which is the purpose of the literature review. You want to know what's gone before, what gaps exist, and maybe if you found something has been studied before in your particular topic, you may want to study it in a different context. But see, I don't know any of this yet if you just throw a topic at me. I may also want to know, well, what is it specifically are you going to try and study? And that would be, what are your research questions? What research questions do you have? Are you testing a hypothesis, or are you observing or describing a phenomena? One is more quantitative, typical of a quantitative approach. One is more typical of a qualitative approach. What are your variables? For example, smoking and lung cancer. Those are examples of variables. If I vary smoking, will lung cancer vary accordingly? Is there a relationship between those two variables? So do you have an understanding of some of the variables? How are you going to measure something, which could be, which is referred to in research as constructs? You're going to have a concept that you may want to measure, but you need to break it down for the purposes of research. So stepping back, if someone says, what do you think of my topic? I have to know what's the underlying theoretical basis, the literature, are there any gaps in the literature, what are your research questions, tell me something about the variables that you may have identified, constructs that you may intend to measure, and all of those items need to be in alignment. And they need to be addressing gaps in the literature so you could advance this knowledge further and make your own unique contribution. So if you do know all of those things, then you don't need to ask me how good your topic is. You can determine that yourself. If you have a theoretical base, you've identified some literature, you've identified gaps in the literature, you have research questions, and those research questions are designed to either test things that have already been tested but in a different context, or you've spotted gaps in the literature that need further development, either through building or developing a theory, or which would be qualitative research, or testing hypotheses, which is more of quantitative research. You have constructs, so you can measure what you intend to research. If you can answer all those questions, you don't need to ask someone else if the topic is good. Likewise, you cannot just ask anyone or even yourself if a topic is good unless you understand what's underneath the waterline in that giant iceberg associated with research and developing a research topic. I hope that's maybe give you some insights at some of the moving parts required to derive a research topic. Fundamentally, always remember that when you do research, Many others have researched before you. You're adding your one little tiny unique contribution to advance that body of knowledge further. So that's all for now. Just some comments about topic selection in Module 2.